Afternoon, everybody. My name is Maura Keefe. I'm one of the scholars in residence here. It is my privilege to conduct this brief conversation with Artistic Director Tina Finkelman Berkett. Woo!
Bravo.
So I have to say it's we were just gabbing because we've done this before here at the Pillow, as Pam said in her opening remarks, first in the Doris Duke and then in 2022 on the outside stage. So you are a rare person who's been in every theater at the Pillow, which is fantastic.
That is true,
yeah.
yes.
I was thinking, it's really striking to me, having seen most recently the company unadorned, except for the beautiful Berkshire's backdrop. And now we're deep into technology. So we're going to talk about the different pieces, but I just have to say, it's thrilling to have you back. It feels fresh and mature simultaneously, so
Thank you
it's
for
great.
that. Thank you.
So we're going backwards. If you're reading along in your program, we're starting with the last piece, the newest work on the program, commissioned from Jewel D. Lane. And I feel like he's one of the kind of newer voices that you have, since the beginning of the company, been discovering and highlighting. Could you talk a little bit about how you came to know Lane's work? And then I'm going to ask you about the production.
Great. So, hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you for being with us today. It was a good show, wasn't it? Yeah. I thought so. Good. So, during the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands. I'm sure we all did. And I was scrolling through Instagram, and I'm a huge Camille Brown fan and a great admirer of her work. And so I was doing a deep dive into her work, and I was watching every little video that I could, and I came across a video of Jewel dancing a solo that Camille had made. And I was completely taken by this artist, by this dancer who had never seen live. And I actually saved it, and when, during the pandemic, as I think many of us did, I had, big crisis of identity of, this is going to be so hard, how could I possibly carry on with Body Traffic? There's no money left, how will the world recover? And very often, I would open this video of this gentleman that I didn't know just to watch for inspiration. I had no agenda to work with him or commission him. And so I would open this video, and I would watch it all the time. And they were workshopping Ain't Misbehavin'. If you want to look for this video, you can find it online. And then when the company came back, and I started to think about who I wanted to work with, and I completely changed the company when we came back from the pandemic. And one day, like I had before, looking for inspiration, I opened this video of Jewel, and then it occurred to me, oh, maybe I could know this person. So I reached out to him, I asked for some samples of his work, I loved his work, and that's how the conversation started. And he is so beloved in our company. The dancers, he's a generous choreographer. And now I'm talking for a long time, but I'll say one more thing, which is that people often ask me how I choose the choreographers, and really their kindness and their humanity comes first. And he is a perfect example of the purest soul that shares the most beautiful craft. And I think that you can see how much they love him in the way that they dance the work.
You can find excerpts of Jewel dancing on Jacob's Pillow Dance Interactive if you're looking for, if it's ever not a beautiful day and you want to be watching some video, because he really is a beautiful mover and inspires them. But he also has a big idea in this work, and working very closely with the projection designer. Could you talk a little bit about hey Tina, I have this idea, and what your response was to his imagination in this work?
So Jewel came in with an idea to honor Ernie Barnes, and this was something he'd already committed to in a prior work he made for himself, a solo. And Ernie has very close connections to Los Angeles, and it felt like the right fit for our company. And he started to make the work. He had the idea to have a central character that did depict the life of Ernie Barnes and the way that Ernie was observing dancers in particular and how colors came to life for him. And then, so the work had the sound. He was working with the composer, and we had the sound of the paintbrush. But there was no agenda to have projection. So at first, the piece was created. We had this very clear sound of paint brush, tapping on the side of a paint can and the brush strokes. And then as I often do with choreographers, I kept saying, I think there's more. I think there's more. What can we do to further bring this to life? And for a long time, I'd wanted to work with a choreographer with a scrim on the front of the stage. And so I went to Jewel and I said, what do you think about enhancing the work with this element? That was my singular contribution. He then found the animator and artist that created that work, and they worked so closely together with videos of the choreography to match the green strokes when the green dancer is going, and so on and so forth. And I just think they made such a beautiful composition.
Yeah, they really go beautifully together. You can feel the collaboration in that. Going backwards now to Matthew Neenan's piece, you did a piece of his when you were here in 22, and you said at that time that you were thinking about revisiting some people you love to work with, and it's so great to see this work. Could you talk a little bit about the kind of the subtlety that's in this work? I mean, the last time you were here, it was music by Peggy Lee, and you'd been on a dude ranch. This feels like a very different mood to that work.
Yes, very, very good remembering the dude ranch. So Matthew has built such a close relationship with our company over the years, and A Million Voices, if you've seen it, was certainly a signature work of ours and really helped propel the company's success. And so when I invited him back, we had such an intimacy already. The two of us as collaborators and the dancers with Matthew. And Matthew's husband had been battling cancer for many years. And when I called Matthew, I said, I want to make an evening about memory, about recalling a time in your life or being, in fact, my initial inspiration was this thing I saw on a t-shirt which said, this song reminds me of you. And then that kind of snowballed into this whole idea. And I said to Matthew, I want to use music that transports people. And for you, what would that be? And his answer was their wedding song, which is the first track of the piece. So this very hypnotic and meditative movement that you see, that was how he brought their wedding song to life. And so Matthew made a piece to honor his relationship with his husband and what it means to be in the role of caregiver during such a hard time. And he shared it very generously. I think the dancers hold it very close to their hearts. And there's so much subtlety, there's so much nuance as there is in a relationship like that.
It's so different from the work of Trey McIntyre's, which closes the first piece. And Trey was here earlier in the week, and I got really thinking about, because during dress rehearsal, Tina's in the house, she's got a microphone, and she's giving notes to the dancers, move a little bit more upstage, I see your hand a little too much there. And the way that I was thinking, here is a dancer giving really specific notes to other dancers, but then you also had Trey in the house who's giving notes as a choreographer. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about navigating that relationship, especially because you have a new relationship with Trey.
So Trey and I first met because Trey was making a stage show for Disney for the Shanghai theme park. And Disney brought in BODYTRAFFIC, because their campus is in Los Angeles, to make these things, and brought in BODYTRAFFIC to make this stage show with actually Victor Quijada and Trey McIntyre. And that's how I met both of them. And I was cast as Cinderella, as a dancer. And that's how Trey and I met. And we totally hit it off. We had so much fun. We learned so much. Bob Iger was there throughout the workshop. We learned so much. And that's where our friendship started. And then for many, many years, we talked about doing something together and couldn't quite figure it out. Blue Until June, which you saw this afternoon, was the first work we officially licensed from Trey. And then after that, he joined us as a creative partner in this capacity. And we love this partnership in that I'm not a choreographer and I have no aspiration of being a choreographer. I love the idea of being a curator of dance, like a curator exists in a museum setting. And so there's so much mutual respect there, and the fact that he knew me as a dancer. So when I interject and say, oh, that's not working, we need to clean that up, he says, okay, you're right, go ahead. And similarly, when he says, well, that's not what I'm after, that's not what I wanted to communicate, I give him the space to do that. So we're really in our own lanes, but on the same path, for sure.
So the opening piece, this beautiful Flyland, if you were not at the gala or didn't watch it, go to the archives and watch it, because Tina performed it at the gala. So, which is, I'm so excited for this like kind of insider moment, because this is the one with the projection that the dancers are interacting with. It's not in front of them, it's not behind them, it's like enveloping them. Yes. And so when you're dancing, you've got your dancing partner to pay attention to, you've got the music, but now you've also really got to pay attention to other visual elements as well. Could you talk a little bit about what it was like to dance, and then back up to why you brought it into the company?
Sure. It's an incredible experience to interact with the space in this way. And what's interesting is that for the gala, my husband and I performed it, and this afternoon you saw a husband and wife perform it, Katie and Joanne. And so it's very interesting because there's so much trust that you have to have in each other, because you're not just navigating partnering and timing, but you're also having to arrive to very specific spots on the floor at the exact right time. So there really is no way to rehearse it without the projections and the sound. It's impossible. We tried, and then we got on stage and realized, oh, well, that was pointless. And so we have marks on the Marley, and they are written like it says book, it says staircase, it says ladder, it says
the Marley
seat.
Is the white floor that the projections are on.
Thank you. So all of the marks, which are very close to the color of the Marley, so that you can't see them when it gets projected onto the screen. But what is happening, and what Katie, the dancer you saw perform it today, what she communicated to me today is she said, you have to be so elegant and present yourself, and you're in this relationship and you have to do the choreography, and at the same time in your mind you just want to be like looking at the floor to find the right mark. And so I think she concealed it beautifully, and that is the hardest part.
Well, it feels like it's this whole other stakes of like task that you're attending to at the same time as performing this relationship.
Totally.
So how did you see the piece, and what made you think, oh, this is Body Traffic, we need to do this work?
Well, Guzman, my husband, and I were in the Netherlands some years ago. We were acquiring a duet, and we spent a few weeks at Netherlands Dance Theatre working with a choreographer there. And during that time, Guzman said, let's go over to David Middendorf's studio. And I'd never seen such a world of technology. In fact, I encourage all of you, if you're ever in The Hague, he has drones, and it's endless. I mean, I don't even know the words for the technology that he has going there. And so we spent a day playing around with the projections. And then I kind of filed it into the back of my mind. And this year, when I was, looking for repertory, I came across Flyland, and I thought, oh man, I think that now we're at the level where we could house something like that. I didn't know that, in years past that we were in houses that could maybe house a work like that. And so the next step was actually that our agent, Margaret Selby, said, we have to have that piece. And the next step was to Pam, Margaret to Pam, do you think you'd want to present this piece? And so we just acquired it maybe 2 months ago, and mostly to present it here at the Pillow.
That's so great.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is the infrastructure that's necessary to do
Yes.
the kind of technologically savvy work that we saw this afternoon. Lots of different things.
And very expensive. We have to travel with multiple cameras and to practice it. I mean, we had to rent a theater in Los Angeles just to practice it. So very costly to accomplish something like that.
So the other thing I was thinking about, because I'm a historian, but I'm always thinking about what's next. 20 years
Yes.
coming up.
Yes.
What's on your wish list? Is it going to be some retrospective of Tina's faves and greatest hits? Is it all new work? What are you thinking about?
Well, I love that question. This summer is the 20th anniversary of my first Jacob's Pillow performance with Azure Barton in the Doris Duke. And as I think about that time in my life when I was performing with Azure, and then I moved to Los Angeles, left behind a really, growing career to start Body Traffic. Even now, it makes me really emotional because I had so much to prove, and I can't believe what we've accomplished. I'm so proud of our company. And so my focus has shifted a lot. Now I feel like I am on a mission to secure jobs for dancers and make sure that they can do this for a living. And you'll be surprised to know that we're one of the highest paying companies in America. We offer one of the highest contracts for dancers, and they still starting salaries $40,000. Living wage in Los Angeles is $80,000. So you see, we're highly competitive in the dance world, and yet dance is still struggling to have the funding necessary for dancers to commit their lives to this craft. So, of course, I want to present amazing dance, and I'm really committed to building audience, not just in our hometown, but keeping people coming to dance, and keeping our art form alive. But my greatest mission is to make sure that they can make a living wage and continue doing what they so beautifully do. Yeah.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. All right, so maybe you're not going to tell us exactly the choreographers that you're thinking about working with, but so my last question then is thinking about comparing being outside to being in this theater, and what kind of improvisational things do you have to draw on to adapt to new spaces as a dancer, as the person sitting in the house, helping them know how to perform beautifully?
So I think that when I think back to 2013, our first time here at the Pillow, I came into the Ted Shawn to watch Dorrance dance, and that was the first time I met Michelle, and that our love grew from this place. And it's amazing to think back to, being across campus and aspiring to be in this theater. So this really is, as Pam describes at the beginning of the show, it's a monumental moment. And imagine for a dance company to be able at one venue to grow over time. I mean, this is actually, it's unique to only the Pillow, Donald, right? Am I right? Yes. Where you can arrive as a young emerging company, and then an audience grows with you, literally grows in size and over time, and to arrive to this moment. And there are people who saw us back then, and it's amazing to connect. But I completely sabotaged your question, so let's go back and tell me again.
No, one of the things I was thinking about is like the attention to the technology here versus the attention to weather, wind, all of the kind of navigation of the liveness of performance.
Well, I think what's special about Body Traffic, in my very humble opinion, is how well you get to know them over the course of an evening. I love that. Did you feel that way? Like you really got to know them? Good. Okay, well, I hope so. So I feel like that, my goal is for that to translate no matter what space they perform in. So the outdoor stage was beautiful, and I felt like they were very generous. A few years ago, around the time that we were on the outdoor stage, I had a very important mentor who I actually just lost, Elaine Wynn. And she said to me at that time, it's time for you as a director to up your game with your sets, your costumes. It's time. And those things are very expensive, and that's why I always kind of held back. But since that moment, I really did heed that advice, and I think you see that. And this program, I think, deserves to be seen as the work was created, and it is a higher level than work we'd made before.
Well, we can't wait to see what's next. We're so happy you're here. Tell your friends to join us this weekend. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your work.
Thank you.